On a snow-covered ridgeline in the Russian Far East, in temperatures that have not risen above -20 for 9 days, a female Amur tiger is walking the freshly snowed, over track of a wild boar. Her paw prints, the size of a small dinner plate, sink to her elbow in the powder. Her breath emerges in long, slow plumes. She has not eaten in 11 days. And in this country where prey is sparse and winters are very long, that is not extraordinary. That is normal. She is an Amur tiger, Panthera tigris altaica, and she is the northernmost, largest, coldest adapted tiger that has ever walked this planet. An adult female of her size weighs around 140 kilograms. The male's 220, sometimes more. Her coat is paler than her tropical cousins, and longer nearly 6 centimeters at the belly in midwinter. Her fat layer is several centimeters thick. She is built for the cold. She is built for vast distances. She is built, more than any other tiger in the world, for solitude. This is one winter, one mountain range, one tiger, and one of the most extraordinary recoveries of any large carnivore in modern conservation history. To understand her, you must first understand the country. The Sikhote-Alin is a long folded mountain chain that runs north to south for 1,000 kilometers along the Russian Pacific coast. Its highest peaks rise above 2,000 meters. Its forests are unique. Nowhere else on Earth does Siberian taiga meet East Asian temperate forest in such complete overlap. Korean pine grows alongside Manchurian fir. Mongolian oak grows alongside Siberian spruce. Wild boar and red deer share habitat with Asian black bears. Sable run the snowpath alongside martens. In a single square kilometer of Sikhote-Alin forest, more tree species exist than in any other temperate forest of the northern hemisphere. In a forest this diverse, the food web for a top predator is layered. Wild boar are her most reliable winter prey. A wild boar of moderate size will feed her for 10 days. Red deer and sika deer move through her range, particularly in lower elevations. Moose in some northern parts of her territory. Asian black bears denning in autumn, occasionally taken by a desperate tiger before they have fully buried themselves. In summer, the lakes and rivers offer salmon and the occasional young moose, but the foundation of her winter is the boar. Now compare her home range to that of any other tiger on Earth. In tropical India, a tigress may hold a territory of 50 square kilometers. In the Sikhote-Alin, she holds a territory of 400 to 700 square kilometers, more than 10 times the size. The forest is rich, but it is not dense in prey. A boar herd may live in this valley, and the next valley over may hold no boar for kilometers. So she covers ground. An average winter night may see her walk 15, 20, sometimes 30 kilometers through deep snow, searching for a fresh track or a still warm bed. And Amur tiger's hunting technique is in its bones, the same as that of every tiger anywhere. Approach, stalk, strike. But the conditions she works in change everything. In summer, she has dappled forest, low ferns, the silence of warm ground beneath her feet. In winter, every step she takes makes a sound. The snow creaks under her weight. The dry frozen branches she brushes against shed flakes that betray her position. In winter, a deer or a boar can hear her coming from 100 meters, so her strategy adjusts. She uses streamed corridors where the snow has been packed by repeated movement of prey animals. She uses old roadways and game trails that the wind has scoured to a thin crust. She approaches from downwind always. She knows every fold of her range, the points where boar concentrate in heavy snow, the deer yarding areas in oak groves where mast holds them through January. And she stalks with a patience that no other cat anywhere can match. An Amur tigress has been observed waiting in a single ambush position for over 6 hours without moving, in temperatures below -30. On the 11th day of her hunger, she finds her opportunity. A boar herd is feeding under a Korean pine slope, digging for the previous autumn's mast. 7 animals, 3 adults, 4 yearlings. The wind is from her face. The trees behind her are dense. She begins her stalk from 160 meters. Watch how she closes the distance. The first 50 meters take 20 minutes. She uses every fallen log, every dense thicket of fir, every snowdrift. She freezes for 2 full minutes when an adult sow lifts her head. She advances in low, slow, elastic steps when the head drops. In the entire stalk, she will be invisible to the boar. The strike happens in 3 bounds. The first carries her 10 meters from cover. The second is into the flank of a yearling boar at the rear of the herd. Her front paws strike his shoulders, her jaws close on the back of his neck. The dental adaptation of a tiger is precise. The canines slide between the cervical vertebrae and sever the spinal cord. The yearling is dead before the rest of the herd has finished turning. His siblings scatter into the trees. The sow charges once, a fierce defensive lunge, and the tigress backs off a single step, lowers her body over the kill, and the sow withdraws. She drags the kill 20 meters back toward dense cover. She does not eat at the kill site. In Russian Far East winter, kills draw scavengers within hours. Wolves, brown bears that have not yet denned, lynx, foxes, crows, ravens, magpies. She must establish defensible terrain. In a dense thicket of fir, with cover above and behind her, she begins to feed. She will not move from this kill for the next 5 to 7 days. She will eat 30 kilograms of meat in the first sitting. She will rest. She will eat again. She will finally, after a week, walk on, her belly heavy, her coat full, to find the next track in the next valley. In a den 100 kilometers from her current hunting ground, 2 tiger cubs are sleeping. They were born in the previous spring. They are 9 months old. They are no longer infants. But they are not yet hunters. They wait. In the rocky outcrop their mother chose for her den nearly 9 months ago, for her return. In an Amur tiger family, the mother may leave her cubs for 2, 3, sometimes 5 days at a time as she hunts. During those days, the cubs do not feed. They sleep. They wait. When she returns, her belly heavy, she leads them, very slowly, to wherever the kill is. Tiger cubs are dependent on their mother for far longer than the cubs of most other large carnivores. In the Amur tiger, full independence is typically reached between 18 months and 2 years of age. But effective hunting skill takes even longer to develop. A 2-year-old tigress, newly independent, may take 6 months to kill a single boar on her own. In the meantime, she lives on smaller prey, musk deer, hare, even fish along stream beds. In the first year, the mother brings them to her kills. They eat from her catches. They watch how she approaches prey. They watch how she chooses a kill site. They watch how she defends her food from scavengers. In the second year, she begins to allow them to participate. They make their own attempts on small prey, with her watching from cover. If they fail, she takes over. If they succeed, partially, clumsily, they are praised by example, not language. The next attempt, she will let them go a step further. In the third year, she drives them away. The male cub will disperse far, sometimes hundreds of kilometers, searching for an unoccupied range. The female cub may settle in territory bordering her mother's own, sometimes even adjacent to it. Female tigers, more than males, tolerate proximity to their mothers and sisters. In the Sikhote-Alin, related females often hold neighboring territories for life. Males come and go. A century ago, the Amur tiger held a range that extended across Manchuria, the Russian Far East, the Korean Peninsula, and parts of northeastern Mongolia and China. By the late 1942, after decades of unrestrained hunting for fur, for skeleton, and for live capture of cubs, the entire subspecies had collapsed. Estimates of the surviving wild population in 1940 ran as low as 40 animals. 40! In all of the Russian Far East, the Amur tiger came within a generation of disappearing entirely. Then, beginning in 1947, the Soviet Union banned tiger hunting entirely across the species range. One of the earliest and most decisive single-species protection acts in the world. In a country still recovering from the Second World War, in a region so remote that enforcement seemed nearly impossible, the ban was largely respected. Within 20 years, the population had begun to recover. By the 1982, it had passed 200. By the 2000s, it was approaching 500. Today, the wild Amur tiger population in Russia exceeds 550 individuals, more than at any point in the past 100 years. The recovery is real. It is also fragile. Poaching for traditional medicine markets remains a constant pressure. Habitat fragmentation continues. The boar, her primary prey, has been hit hard in recent years by African swine fever, an introduced disease that has reduced wild boar populations across the region by as much as 80% in some valleys. When the boar suffer, the tigers suffer. In some recent years, biologists have documented tigers walking into villages, killing livestock, sometimes attacking dogs, behavior that is almost always a sign of an animal struggling to find wild prey. Her future depends on the future of the boar, the deer, and the protected core of her forest. If all three remain robust, she can remain. If any one of them fails, her family will follow. The arithmetic of this animal in this country is more brittle than it appears. One subspecies, 550 individuals, spread across an area larger than Germany. In every Amur tigress's range, there is at least one resident male. His territory is 2 to 3 times the size of hers. It overlaps with her own and with that of perhaps 2 or 3 other females. He visits her range periodically, every few months, in his slow patrols across his domain. He marks, he sprays, he scrapes at the bases of old pines. He fights other males who attempt to intrude. In a typical resident male's life of 12 to 15 years, he will hold his territory for perhaps 6 or 7 years before being displaced or killed by a younger challenger. In one of his patrols every spring, he meets our tigress. She is in estrus for a few days. They mate over the course of a week. She then drives him from her range. He returns to his patrols. He will not see the cubs that result. They will be born in her den, raised by her alone, named only by the field biologists who have been tracking her for years. In the male tiger's life, his contribution to the next generation ends with the act of mating. Everything else is on her. On the 5th day of her week at the boar carcass, our tigress has eaten her fill. She has cached the remainder in deep snow, covered with branches. She does not leave the cache to die. She begins the slow, long walk back to her cubs. 100 kilometers through deep snow, across 3 watersheds. On the way, she will not eat again, but she will lead her cubs back to the cache when she arrives. The cubs hear her before they see her. Her low rumbling call carries half a kilometer through the dry winter air. By the time she is 50 meters from the den, they have emerged. They tumble down the snow toward her in clumsy bounds. She tolerates their enthusiasm with a slow, patient eye. She nuzzles them. She licks the male's broad face. She presses her cheek against the female's flank. Then, without hesitation, she turns. She begins the long walk back to the cache. The cubs follow her, one behind the other, in the trough her own body has cut through the snow. One winter. One mountain range. One tigress. In the snow of the Sikhote-Alin, the family arrives at the cache in the late afternoon of the 7th day. The cubs feed. The mother lies down a few meters away, her eyes half closed, her belly heavy, her breath rising in long, slow plumes. By next year, the cubs will be on their own. By the year after, she will den again. By the year after that, she will be raising a new pair of small striped bodies in a different den on a different slope, in this same forest where her mother before her, and her mother's mother before that, raised tigers as far back as evolution can be traced. 550 wild Amur tigers exist on this planet today. More than there have been for 100 years. Fewer than the number of tigers in private captivity in the United States alone. This animal, the largest cat on Earth, the coldest adapted predator in her family, the survivor of a single species protection effort that began in 1947 in a country still recovering from war, is here. Walking the snow, feeding her cubs, holding her range. One of the great cautious successes in the history of wildlife conservation, and one of the great fragile achievements that requires every coming generation of effort to maintain. One forest. One tigress. One winter. And in the snow tonight, walking the trail of her cubs, an animal who has come back against most expectations from the very edge.